good morning. Happy game day, Steeler Nation. As the Pittsburgh Steelers will be looking to make it three in a row as they start off the season at 2-1. And thankfully, good news so far. They are first place in the AFC North. Despite their beatdown by the 49ers in week one, they have won back-to-back games since pretty much in tight wins basically versus the Cleveland Browns on Monday Night Football, of course, last week versus the Raiders in Vegas. First time they earned their win on the road. Nearly blew a 16-point lead, but that's neither here nor there. The Steelers right now will be looking to uh, keep this streak going for right now and looking to continue to build up some momentum and get some more identity on the offense as it is year number two for Kenny Pickett, excuse me, under Mike Tomlin. We all heard about like the Pickett fans that was being advertised throughout the offseason with his new offensive line, basically. And what can they do to like make this a successful day for the offense, get any type of mojo going? Again, I am Charles Prodigy Richey. This edition of the Men Steel podcast presents Show Blitz right now as the Steelers will be taking on the Houston Texans in week number 4. The game will take place at Energy Stadium on CBS. Now we got some roster news coming out, and one of the biggest headlines going to this game surprised me yesterday. Steelers, they have elevated punter Brad Wing from the practice squad for today's game in Houston. He's a native of Australia. He entered the league 10 years ago as an undrafted free agent from LSU. He competed with Donnie Jones in training camp with the Eagles. Next year, he landed with the Steelers and won a job. 2 years later, as in 2015, the Steelers traded Wing to the Giants for a seventh-round pick. He punted for the Giants for 2017. He was released by the Giants in early 2018, and he went for a period where he's basically been out of the league for about 5 years. He found no takers in 2019. He punted in the short-lived AAF that year and was completely out of football for 3 straight seasons, beginning with the first year of COVID. Now, Brad Wing, like I said, for the most part, with his overall career as a punter, when you look at this guy right here, who comes in, it's been a long time since we last seen this guy. And I thought he did pretty solid for his times as punter. I mean, it did okay. But I mean, you look at his yards per punt, he is about 44.7, so nearly 45 yards punt right there. And we'll see what happens because right now you got a situation on hand, as we saw in the injury report going into today's game right now. We already know that Presley Harvin, he has been out. He did not practice all week, dual hamstring. You also got James Daniel, their right guard, who's been dealing with groin injury right now. He has been ruled out of today's game, excuse me, this afternoon. And that's all we know so far. But the Houston Texans right now, entering this game banged up, missing significant chunks of their offensive line. I mean, more in particular, I mean, you look at like right now, their starters right now, Laramie Townsend, who's their left tackle. He's been dealing with a knee injury. He did not practice all week. He has been ruled out for today's game, as well as backup tackle Josh Jones. He's dealt with a hand injury. He has been ruled out of today's game. Then you look at like some of like their other starters too. I mean, right now it seems like a lot of hand injuries going in today's game. You look at Danzel Perryman, their Mike Mill linebacker, hand wrist out. You look at T. Thomas right there, their nickel corner. He's also been dealing with a hand injury. He has been ruled out for today's game. The only other guy that got questionable is Michael D, their center. He's been dealing with a chest. He popped up on their injury report on Thursday and didn't practice on Friday. He is listed as questionable for today's game as we look at. But for right now, too, really going to be interesting to see how they follow this up right now because my main concern right now with this team, when we look at too, I mean, was the run defense. And I gotta be honest with you. I mean, I really felt like when the Steelers, you see a guy like Brian Flores, who is now a defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. You look at like the last like 2 years, so to speak. Remember, Stephon Tuitt's brother was killed in a hit and run accident. He did not play in 2021. And so he retires officially as of last year. And you bring in a guy like Brian Flores, because remember, they were dead last in stopping the run in 2021. Last year, they got him back in the top 10 right there. And look at Brian Flores, he was one of the guys who sued the NFL uh, for some collusion, basically. But anyway, I mean, look at his time since he's last been a head coach right now. He's now serves as a Minnesota Vikings defense coordinator. And when you look at it right now, too, I mean, with the Minnesota Vikings, I mean, their rushing defense is still struggling right now, if you think about it. I mean, for the most part, trying to stop the run. I mean, they're 27th in trying to defend that, or 19th, excuse me, in trying to defend that as well. So we got a situation right here, right now, too. When you look at the defense side of the ball, and there's reason to believe some optimism too, that when you think about it, I mean, like according to Dale Lally, I mean, for right now, uh, they really believe that their inside linebackers veteran duel is starting to gel for the Steelers. You look at guys like 27-year-old Cole Holcomb and 29-year-old Landon Roberts and Quan Alexander. Steelers value the been there, done that experience head coach Mike Tomlin so often refers to when talking about players. The NFL is a young man's game, but experience is something that cannot be overlooked, as well, especially inside linebacker, where offensive coordinators regularly manipulate young inside linebackers, make them do their bidding. Now, in Holcomb, Roberts, and Alexander, Steelers felt the experience that the trio brings to their defense is covered by the fact all three still retain the athleticism that got them into the NFL from the start. Now, I'll tell you what, though, last week's game versus Raiders was a much better improvement when you look at that game right there, and where the Steelers were able to finally get some footing on the run game for the most part. I mean, look at it right there. I mean, last week on the ground, they only gave up for on the ground 69 yards off of 19 carries. While previously, the last two games, you saw, I mean, defending against the Browns, then the opener versus the Raiders. I mean, where they really got shellacked and where they allowed, I mean, 386 yards for the first two games. They really got their butts handed to them in that department, just trying to control that tempo. But I'm hoping right now that you continue to have this gel right now, because I said before that Brian Flores heading into that Raiders game, he's one of the guys who I felt if any loss in the offseason they felt were as players or coaches, he has been the one guy that stands out for me the most. Defensive corner Terry Austin is quoted as saying, "We have three starter capable guys. It keeps them fresh, keeps them engaged, and I think it's working well. I like what all three of them are doing. We just have to keep them healthy and upright to the end of the season." And you look at this rebuild, how it started this earlier in the year. I mean, when they signed Holcomb and Roberts within hours of each other of the opening salvo free agency. I mean, then you also added a guy like Quan Alexander late July, a few days in the training camp. Alexander has completed the total makeover of the team's core right there as far as the inside linebacking position. Only second year pro Mark Roberts returned for last year's players at that position. So far, it's been positive, but I'm still a little pessimistic in that one. Still wait and see on that how it goes. I mean, I don't know. I mean, or a little doubtful. Excuse me. But anyway, too, we look at the other roster news though too, or like some other aspects of this game right now. I mean, look at the Steelers going up against the Houston Texans right now. This team right now, they've last lost to the Texans back in 2011 was their last loss to them versus them. And that was on the road in Houston at Energy Stadium. I mean, since then, I mean, the Steelers, I mean, since that last loss, they had won three in a row. I mean, only one primetime game this all-time head-to-head matchups, which was back 9 years ago on Monday Night Football, where the Steelers won that game 30-23. That was the score in that game. And I want to say the Steelers were trailing in that game, back in that game. I want to say when we look at it, pulling up the score right now, which happened back about a little over a week and a half before Halloween. In that game on Monday Night Football, they were trailing as many as 13 points. They didn't start getting a run going towards the end of like the first half, and where they scored. I mean, for the most part, I mean, just started wheeling dealing right there. That was a game right there in which you saw Ben Roethlisberger threw for 265 yards, but also two Le'Veon Bell, who had one of his highlights in his career as a runner and pass catcher for scrimmage yards too. He also had 145 yards of scrimmage with a touchdown. So, and then you also look at too. I mean, of course, Antonio Brown. I mean, he did okay in that game. I mean, he only had 9 catches for 90 yards, but that was pretty much it. And Martavis Bryant had a touchdown, along with Lance Moore. But I mean, the big thing is though too. We know how the Steelers and Texans usually most up historically from a standpoint. I mean, when you think about it too. I mean, they've only had two losses. The very shocking ones was the very first time back a little over 20 years ago, 21 years ago, back on December 8th of 2002, and where the Steelers will finish out the season 10-5-1 to win the very first inaugural AFC North title. That was the very first season and where they switched to a four division format when the Houston Texans came into the league as an expanded franchise. Uh, that's when they did the whole division split. They went from three to four. And Houston at that point in time, too, they were also without a football team for at least I mean, from 1997 to 2001. So about 5 years or without a football team, basically 5 seasons. So, I mean, they lost that contest 24-6. And then the only other loss that was a little frustrating too was the year they were the AFC champions. They lost that game 10-17 on the road in Houston. I mean, that's where you just started like seeing like signs of the defense just being a little bit shaky that year. But I mean, in that contest too, on the road where they lost that one. I mean, for the most part, they were -1 in the turnover ratio. Ben Roethlisberger got sacked 5 times for a loss of 28 yards, while the Steelers pass rush could not get after the quarterback. So, I mean, what happened like a year later? That's when Todd Haley came in. But I mean, other than that, too, I mean, you also got to look at a guy like J.J. Watt right there, too. I mean, J.J. Watt, who's just been a beast of a player for this Houston Texans franchise, just coming in here and just really just doing like a whale of a job right here. I mean, J.J. Watt, I mean, just remarkable what he's been able to do in his 12-year NFL career. He started off 16 games with the Texans, then start getting uh, his Pro Bowl All Pro numbers until like his second season, in which saw him like where he won at least two of those or like three Defense Player of the Years within a 4-year span. Three out of 4 seasons, he was a Defensive Player of the Year. It was almost considered possibly for debate, maybe league MVP, the first guy to do it since Lawrence Taylor. Now, throughout his 12 seasons, he's had 114 and a half sacks, while his younger brother right now, too, I mean, TJ Watt, I mean, who's been really keeping the pace, too. I mean, you look at his career right now. He is at 83 and a half sacks right now. He's already got like a six, which is the most highest start off for his career right now. And you got to wonder too if there's unfinished business right now. Will we see TJ Watt get the official single season sack record right now? I mean, that's another thing right there too, where I still feel like that was clearly a highway robbery that was taken away from him. I mean, of course, in the all-time record books, even though it was an unofficial stat, didn't become official until 1982. People still want to recognize the league does. Al Baker, who had 23 with the Detroit Lions, about 45 years ago, he had 23 sacks. So half a sack more than Strahan and Watt. And there you have it right there. But I'm going to tell you what right now, a guy like J.J. Watt, who's just been a remarkable representative for say Houston. He's become the third member to join the Houston Texans Ring of Honor as he now joins founder Bob McNair, former All-Pro wide receiver Andre Johnson. And basically, his three NFL Defensive Player of the Years, basically right there, he's tied with LT and Aaron Donald for the most in history. And it was just one of the peaks of his career right there. What happened to J.J. Watt shortly after he won his third and final Defensive Player of the Year? He had a hard time staying healthy the rest of the way. He only had 3 more years where he started practical two more seasons where he started a full season, which was back in 2018 and 2020. Now, the Houston Texans, in that 2018 season, they won the AFC South Division, but they would lose to the Colts, I believe, was in the first round in the wild card matchup of the playoffs. Other than that, he would finish his career with the Arizona Cardinals. People prior to that signing, a little over 2.5 years ago, a lot of Steelers Nation people were hopeful that he would sign and join with his brother TJ on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I never really thought they had a realistic chance of happening that much. It was definitely some encouraging hopes, but not realistic. Where it'll all shake out. But anyway, who do you think is better right now? Let's just be honest, from the football perspective. I'm gonna still have to go slightly with J.J. Watt for right now, only because like the accomplishments. Yeah, like his health and stuff was definitely where he could have been available for more games. No doubt about it. But I just feel like, if he would have stayed healthy, he would just going to continue on the mass destruction right there. He's also had like his career high in sacks as a defensive end for an edge guy, 20 and a half, which he did twice in 2012 and 2014. And definitely went out nicely in this final season with the Arizona Cardinals, and where he had 12 and a half sacks, which also include 25 quarterback hits, which was pretty impressive, along with 18 tackles for loss. So I just want to just say right now, he set the Texans record, franchise record for sacks, 101, which were the second most in the NFL during that span. And he also had 172 tackles for loss, most in the NFL, since tackles for loss became an official stat. Watt, he also raised more than 41 million to support those in Houston impacted by Hurricane Harvey. He won the 2017 Walter Payton Man of the Year. And the McNair family saying in the statement, we're so excited to have J.J. Watt join the Ring of Honor as our third member, and well-deserved, no doubt about it. So congratulations, J.J., and good luck to your younger brother, T.J. Hopefully the Steelers get a win with him. But anyway, let's go into some more stuff that happened around here, too. Also appearing on Cam Hayward's Not Just Football podcast, former running back Le'Veon Bell, he said that getting leaner might help Najee Harris. Now, Najee Harris has definitely been like one of the critics uh, who's been criticized a lot as of late. There's a lot of rumors circulating, and I don't hear anything factual or anything significant, but I don't know how much of a reach can they trade for a guy like Jonathan Taylor. You look at like Najee Harris. I mean, he takes a little while to like warm up. I still believe he's not a sweeper runner. He's more like an up the gut runner. But I mean, it was just interesting to hear Le'Veon Bell saying like he probably just has to like just get a little bit leaner because he believes the sometimes it's just that extra step. That's all you need to take a run from 2 yards to about nine, just barely squeeze for a hole. Bell said. I think he's a special runner. I think he can see the holes. I even think he knows how to set up his runs. Bell said. Some guys need to hold. Some guys know how to finesse a run and know how to set it up to make something out of nothing. He's so good at that, and I think he can even be better if he's a little lighter. Yeah, and I had to agree with that. I mean, especially when dealing with the foot injury last year, the list rank. I mean, we'll see how that continues to go on right now. I really feel like, this year he is doing his job. I don't think he's getting enough attempts right now. He's only got 35 opportunities to run the ball. I mean, through 3 games right now, and that's like almost like 11 carries per game. I think he needs to have a little bit more. I mean, carries. I mean, you need to feed this guy a lot more. Of course, we know how the game is offensively transitioning, just pass catching. But I really do believe if you could give this guy at least up to like 20 carries, up to 20 carries, he's pretty special right there. You got to keep feeding and grinding it because, there's a lot of games throughout his career where I think he's been able to extend the game. So I think if anything, you need to see a heavy dose of him today, to be honest, yeah, or just mix up with him and Jalen Warren. Also, Coach Mike Tomlin, we swing things over. Coach T, Bob Labarola, he asked Mike Tomlin what's the relationship different between the head coach and the quarterback. Mike Tomlin said it really depends on the head coach's background. I've worked for offensive play callers like John Gruden, and it's really intimate. I'm at more of a distance, so really it depends on the expertise or the background of the head coach. It's not that I'm not close to Kenny Pickett and don't coach him, but not in the minutia. I coach him on leadership things that come with the role, things that he and I need to be responsible for as head coach and quarterback to make sure that we are aligned. I evaluate communication and tangible things, how he wears responsibility being the quarterback. He also asked him too, how is his relationship with Ben Roethlisberger in the last 5 years compares to Kenny Pickett's first 2 years? Very different. If you're talking about the last 5 years, that means Ben and I had already spent 10 years or a decade together. We were an old couple at that point in terms of nonverbal communications and experience shared and conversations already had. There's a lot less to manage from that perspective. But again, we're talking about a decade of shared experience. If you just frame it in the last 5 years of Ben's career, and still dramatically different in terms of laying foundational things, again, understanding working on building relationship requires more work, and that's where Kenny and I are at right now. Also asked on hearing the label or being saddled with the label players coach. Coach Thomas said, I don't know what others think that means. But for me, it's about giving players what they need and not necessarily what they want. At times in the past, I've taken offense to it because sometimes the person who delivers it, I don't think they mean that. I think they mean a buddy. Also, he was asked, lastly, definition of hard coaching. It would be getting attention, Mike Tomlin's response. What's the desired task in hard coaching? You're searching for a behavioral change. And so usually a behavioral change requires attention. So hard coaching is prodding in an effort to get attention, but the bottom line is what you seek is behavioral change. Now let's go ahead and wrap this up. Keys to the game for victory. Hopefully we make it 3 in a row. Steelers entering this game according to OddsShark, they're 4.5 point favorites, but when we look Sunday morning, they are now currently 3 point favorites. So a point and a half down right now. Overall record versus rookie quarterbacks right now as a franchise as a whole, 30-5 with their last loss coming 7 years ago to Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys, which saw him earn a fourth quarter comeback and game winning drive. There are 4 lead changes in the fourth quarter of that game. And we really put the Steelers, I believe, a game under 500 at that point. But anyway, first key of the game, points off turnovers, which would be one thing to keep an eye on. Steelers right now are third in the league with 8 total takeaways, which includes 4 interceptions, 4 fumble recoveries, including 4 and out. They have earned 24 points off 11 takeaways on defense, while Texans on defense, so they're 20 points off of 7 takeaways. So you ask me right there, I mean, what's going to be like one thing to watch out is points off turnovers too. And you look at I mean, with the Steelers right now, they're seem like they're selling in right now with the turnovers, but the problem is the interceptions right there on offense. They are 11th, while the Texans are 29th. That'd be my first key. So definitely points off turnovers, which will translate into winning the turnover battle. Key number 2 would be the pass rush. Steelers are back in the top in pass rush right now, thanks in large part to nearly half of those sacks being responsible by TJ Watt. They got 13 sacks, while Watt has 6, which leads the league. He also leads the league with 12 quarterback hits. That'd be another thing to keep an eye on, because when you look at the Texans right now in terms of protecting their quarterback, they do an awful job in that area right now. They're 8th in the league right there. So that'd be one thing to watch out for. And my last key, I'm only going to have 3 keys. Give me one more after this one. Red zone defense. Steelers are 5-4-8 in keeping opponents out of the end zone, while the Texans are dead last. You see the Houston Texans right here going today's game. They have only converted 3 touchdowns out of 11 trips, while the Steelers are 2 for 3. That'd be key. Red zone defense and red zone offense efficiency. And lastly, protecting Kenny Pickett. I think the Steelers' pass rush over the last 2 weeks. Remember, for the first 2 games, they had 7 sacks given up. But when you look at 5 of those were given up in the first game to the San Francisco 49ers, well machine. So let's not deny that. But I mean, more in particular, it was just a lot more better too. Whereas the Raiders, I think it was 1 sack for a loss of 8 yards. So again, keys to the game: Steelers generating points off turnovers. It'll be the pass rush right now for the Steelers. Right now, their sacks, getting after a guy like C.J. Stroud, and then their red zone defense, keeping opponents out of the red zone, and just protecting Kenny Pickett. And those be my keys to the game for victory. Hopefully, the Steelers can make this happen, make it 3 in a row right there. And also, let's keep an eye on, too, throughout the league, you're going to be having the rest of your divisional opponents as we keep an eye on things throughout the league. You're going to be having the Baltimore Ravens this week. They're trying to bounce back from a loss off the Indianapolis Colts after winning their first 2 games out of the gates. They'll be facing the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland, while the Bengals will be visiting the Titans right there. So get your popcorn ready, as they would say, for the most part. And that's going to do it for this edition of Show Blitz, presented by the Man of Steel Podcast. Once again, you can follow me on my Twitter X contact, on social media at Man of Steel CGR, and on Instagram at Man of Steel Nation. So always leave you. Here goes heroes. Here we go. I gone.
You know, this has been our story all year, hasn't it been? 60 minutes. It's never going to be pretty. Throw style points out the window, but these guys will fight to the end. And I take my hat off to you, and I congratulate every last one of you.
Thank you for watching the Man of Steel Podcast with your host, Charles Prodigy Richey, here on YouTube. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button. And for all the latest Man of Steel Podcast episodes, feel free to download them on Mixcloud, Anchor.fm, and SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts.